pretty much there's a 3-year span of my life that I remember way too much of it. Wish I didn't remember it, but it was just bad. There was nothing good about any of it, but we forget that because we're all caught in this rut doing what everybody else is doing. Let's have the brick house and the 4-wheel drive pickup and the boat and all the stuff in the driveway. And what for? You're gonna die and somebody's gonna cart it off. It's got to be your goal.
Yeah, you
have to set that benchmark. It's like dieting or physical fitness, and it's got to be realistic. And that's back to the physical fitness deal. Or goal setting. It's got to be attainable.
Welcome back to the Wealthy Cowboy Show. Today we have Will Barrett in the studio. Wild Will on all the social media platforms, and this is another testament of the power of social media. I also had a buddy suggest him that watches all of his content, and then I watch some of it, and now it feeds it to me all the time, and I really like it. So I wanted to have him on the show. So how's it going?
I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, you got like I said, I like you're putting out a lot of positive content, a lot of good stuff.
Positive content. I like that.
And we'll
I really didn't know what people thought, I like that.
Making the world a better place, huh?
Well, that's the idea. It's rough enough as it is, you know what I mean?
Well, we always start with your background. Kind of tell us where you came from.
You said we had to be out of here by what time? Man alive. So I was born there in Ranger, Texas, where I still live. Moved off for a while, and got married and all that, and came home and really came back. We moved back there to look after my mom, who was old and sick, and my wife's granddad, who was old and sick. And anyways, they both died, and we ain't had the gas money to leave since. So, one of them deals. But we're still there, been there a long time. But born and raised there in Ranger, Texas. My mother raised me by herself. Dad was MIA, one of them deals. Don't know the details, don't matter. So I grew up fatherless. That created a whole bunch of my 50 years, basically, of searching and seeking who I am. It's a weird spot. But had a rough, just kind of gravitated. Because of that, I gravitated towards just buddies and, and older cowboys and guys.
Did you grow up kind of around ranching people? I mean, that's kind of a small rural community. So.
It is, yeah. Back then, I grew up in the 80s, and I blame round balers and for ruining the world. When I grew up, it was all square bales, and so that kept, that you worked the piss and vinegar off.
Yeah, that's a whole business model that's gone now. Even somebody because we did that in high school, because you could go. It just never made sense to me to go work by the hour for somewhere. You're going to make. Then you had no value to the world besides your back. So you're going to go make $7 an hour somewhere.
Yeah,
you're going to get basically no money for working a whole week or whatever. Yeah. But you could go, you could go haul hay. We would do it.
Hardy
at night.
Work, more money. Man.
Yeah. We could go do it at night, get paid by the bill, and move several hundred in a night, and split up several $100s a piece or something.
Yeah. No, I actually just talked to a man this morning telling him that story about myself, that I grew up in a time when, and because I was fatherless and my mother was very poor, I mean, the money wasn't a thing, garage sales for clothes and hand-me-downs, and I didn't have older brothers, so, that was a trip. But, so if I wanted something, I had to work to get it, and I truly remember pushing a lawnmower around the communities there, around town, the neighborhoods. The few times that we did live in town, my mother lived way out in the country. She loved the country life, and I say it jokingly. She's passed on now, but it seems like we moved every time the rent was due. But it wasn't really the truth. She would go out into on the old ranches and farms and find old abandoned houses that nobody was living in, and go to the tax office and write the landowner and offer to fix them up. Tell them she had 2 little kids, and they'd agree to it, and we'd go in there, me and my little sister, 4 and 8 years old, and all the way back, I can remember it that early, and help her fix them up, clean them up, and she'd doll them up, and we'd live there till usually till they came in from the city or wherever they lived and seen how nice she had it looking and realized they could rent it out. They'd kick us out and rent it. Somebody we'd go drive around in the dirt roads and find another one and do it again. That's really
it's about like leasing a place now. If you go lease a place, it's run down or something,
man,
and you go fix the fences and
No,
do all that stuff.
Don't do it. Just leave the holes in the fences, bud. We've all been down that road.
Then they're like, well, we could get more money for this place now.
Put our own cows on there. Yeah, no, that's a tight spot. We're supposed to be good stewards of whatever we're given an opportunity to look after, but it is a conundrum there. But anyhow, so I grew up like that, and that's what I was telling that guy this morning. If I wanted a pickup, I had to mow grass or haul hay, and so I rode with older guys, and I was their helper, and I got paid a dime a bale. That shows how much older I am than you probably, but I got a dime a bale for helping haul hay until I got my own pickup and trailer, and then I got 35 cents a bale, and so, I'd go to school all day and then work all night hauling hay, literally, and unfortunately that fed into a soon to be drug problem that I didn't know I was going to have. But one of them older guys showed up one day with some stuff called no-dos they found at the truck stop, and it was supposed to help you, stay up. And so we'd take that stuff to haul hay all night, and little pills, anybody could buy them right there at the truck stop. And I look back on it and how the devil just started so many of us off in the wrong direction. And so a few years later, on the way to a rodeo in San Angelo, Texas, some older buddies of mine that I won't mention their name on here, but pulled over and, said, hey, try this. And it was some other white stuff, and I did it and danced with every girl in San Angelo, Texas that night, drank 3 cases of beer, and ready to go to the next party. And them old fat preachers who lie and say sex, drugs, and rock and roll ain't fun. They're lying. They never tried it. You know what I mean? It ain't right, but it is fun, And so that consumed several more years of my life, that honest to God life. I have a dramatic testimony of getting off of that stuff and getting my life in order. And I tell people all the time, I don't consider myself better than anybody. I just know that I'm better than I was at one time, And so when I spent the younger years of my life, you asked me if I grew up around ranching and farming. Back then, ranchers didn't hire contractors. It's another problem that I see in society. I'm not going to change it, but, nowadays, because of liabilities and everybody afraid of getting sued from getting a kid hurt on the ranch or the farm anymore, they just hire a contractor to build a fence or build a hay barn or whatever, clear brush, whatever they're needing done. And back when I was a kid, nobody hired contractors. They went to town and loaded up a pickup load of kids, and so sure, I grew up farming and ranching and just whatever you could do to make a dollar, and all them old ranchers and farmers around hired us kids from town, and fatherless or not, you just worked. You had to. You really didn't. I mean, I guess you could have laid around, but back then nobody would feed you. Nobody'd buy you shoes and clothes and bicycles or whatever you wanted. Nobody bought it for you. That's the era that I grew up in. And so if you wanted something, you had to work for it. And now I'm sure there was rich kids somewhere, but they wasn't in Ranger, Texas. You know what I mean? Everybody was kind of on the same playing field, it seemed like. And so it was just I don't knock it at all. It was a good life, and I tried to raise my boys the same way, and actually I did. And they're all, grown men today and hard-working suckers. 2 of them that are at the Pitchfork right now, and one of them that's up in Colorado guiding hunters and a pack string up and in and out of the mountains, and my boys are hard workers, and that's because I tried real hard to raise them like I was raised in the 80s. But I spent several years of my young life lost in the dope scene and just really trying to fit in. I didn't know that, and I couldn't have told you that back then, but I was just seeking acceptance and identity, really. That's the biggest thing that most of the world is still doing today. Everybody in the world just about is spinning their tires seeking an identity and an affirmation and acceptance in something out there. And unfortunately, usually we're seeking all the wrong places, Mm-hmm. That's what I did for sure. And
it seems to me like you never get peace that way because you're tying it to outside influences like that. I mean, I think community is a very strong thing and you need that. But it was a huge kind of burden, I guess, or, revelation or whatever you want to call it, off of me to now I don't care if
Right.
you like me or don't like me or what you think of me. I control all that, inside, self-esteem, self-confidence.
Exactly.
And then, I mean, yes, I want to be friends with the right people and stuff. And I want a community around me, but like, I'm not going to go.
You don't require it.
Yeah.
To have peace. You already have it. And
Right.
that's, I had a dad, let me say this. I had a brother-in-law. Actually, my mother had kids for a lot of years. And so so I think I have sisters that were 14, 15, 18 years older than me. They were already grown and gone out of the home by the time I have any memory at all, had families of their own. And so they all kind of mothered on me, a little bit. And it's part, more than brother, sister type relationship because they were already raising their own families. And so I did spend a good bit of time with them. My mother was, I love her and she was a good woman and all that and worked hard to feed us and do what she could. But she was kind of rowdy herself and had a lifestyle and that, we wasn't in church. She, wasn't none of that going on. And she did teach me and my sister. I remember she taught us a few, we learned to recite the Lord's Prayer and, the 23rd Psalm at just little bitty kids. And so, and the Bible says that God's word does not return void. And I love to think about it like that because for me it didn't. Those seeds were planted in my mind, in my heart as a little bitty child. And years later, once I realized that all the things that I was seeking and chasing in the world for that peace that you're talking about, it was emptiness and it wasn't working. I finally, standing by a drug dealer's dumpster one day, looked up and said, "Man, God, I want out of this. Please help me." And that was pretty much the simplicity of it. And I got an opportunity. And that was in 1997. And I had been just pretty much, there's a 3-year span of my life that I remember way too much of it. Wish I didn't remember it, but it was just bad. There was nothing good about any of it, But the lifestyle I was living, I mean, people wouldn't even believe it today. It's like I tell people, it's like I was abducted by aliens almost, and literally just forced to live something because I didn't really grow up around drugs the first time I seen methamphetamines was the first time I ever heard of it. That's another testament to the lack of drug awareness and education teaching that was going on back then. You know what I mean? They had a little sign in the hall at the high school that said, it had a picture of a frying pan with a couple of eggs in it frying, and it said, "This is your brain on drugs." That was the extent of drug awareness effort made in my life back then as a youngster. And so, honestly, I trusted those older cowboys that what they were handing me there was not any worse than what we were already buying at the truck stop there in Ranger to stay up at night while we were hauling hay. I didn't think it was any worse. I'm not trying to sound like I was that naive, but it was just that simple for me. And unfortunately, it wasn't. It was a bad deal, and it run off with me for a while. But anyways, I said that prayer and I got out of there pretty quick. A man randomly showed up. I put this on the internet a couple days ago, a little bit about my testimony, but funny enough, I think the day or two after, the next day maybe, I said I was over at my sister's house who was going to work, and the phone rang, and it was a guy from out of town offering me a job, and "Oh, no, man, I'm partying, having the time of my life. No. And he's like, "Man, I need some help." He had a place, and he wanted a barn built and some fence built. And he even said, "My lazy son-in-laws won't help me, and so I know you're a hard worker. I've heard about you, and I want to hire you, and you can stay. I got a place you can stay, and the whole 9 yards. Put me up in the bunkhouse." No. Then I told him, "Man, my truck's broke down, and and I just made every excuse in the world, and hung up on him actually. And you know what's crazy about that? I look back on that, and that was my answer. That was the answer to my prayer that I'd prayed, the day before. God, get me out of here. And when, you heard that old joke about the guy that got caught in the flood, and he climbed up on the porch, and the water was rising. The guy comes by in the John boat and says, "Man, you better get in. The river's coming up." And he says, "No, God's going to save me." Well, you've heard that when the water comes up a little more. He climbs up on the stoop of the porch, and bass boat comes by. "Man, you better get in. The river's right." "No, God's going to save me." Gets up on the very top of the house, and they drop down a rope out of a helicopter. "Man, you better get in." No, God's going to save me." He drowns, gets to heaven and says, "Dang, God, what happened, man?" He said, "Gosh, I sent a John boat, a bass boat, and a helicopter. All you had to do was get in." Well, that was nearly me. You know what I mean? I was almost that guy when that opportunity came my way. I hung up on him. I was like, "No, man, I'm partying. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to, be responsible." I was, and about an hour later, somebody knocked on the door, and it's just a fact. You can argue with me if you want to, and tell me God didn't have nothing to do with it at all, but God knew what would work to get a Wild Will in a pickup. And I opened the door, and this little old half-naked brunette standing there, said, "Hey, Jimmy sent me to get you." And I said, "Let me get my bag." And I rode off with her into the sunset, and what me and her did was beside the point. But, what God wound up doing through that and me walking away from my past is what I encourage people to do, try to do every day of my life. I said, "Look, man, if you don't like where you're at, it's up to you to change it. You can sit and pray like the guy that drowned on top of the house all you want, but if you don't do something yourself, it ain't going to happen. I don't care who you are. You got to get in the truck and drive off and don't look back." And life is, if you don't like where you work, if you don't like where you live, if you don't like your habits, if you don't like your weight, your body condition, it doesn't matter what it is. God made us, gave us a free will, gave us all kinds of talents and abilities, and the world is full of opportunities. If you don't like where you live, you don't like your family, now not your wife and kids, but if you don't like your family, if they're negative and, they're trying to hold you back, drive off, get a ride. Get a bus ticket. Go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Is like just people not. They say people that say there's no opportunity or they never got opportunities or whatever. It's like, no, you probably got them. You just didn't recognize them.
That's right.
If you're not looking for them, you're probably not gonna, realize it. It's easy to see looking back. The opportunity you had there, but
doors that may have came your way.
But like in the moment, yeah, you're scared of taking the leap. DX Trailer Sales is based out of Lubbock, Texas, and it's definitely not just a trailer dealership. If you are involved in the Western way of life, and if you're listening to this show, you probably are, they have something you need. From trailers for a day working cowboy to a full-time cattle hauler to hay trailers for a farmer or rancher to arena drags, rope and chutes, and feeders for the rodeo cowboy or cowgirl. They also deal in every kind of hay any of your animals could ever need. Literally anything you need for farming, ranching, or rodeoing, they have something for you. And it's gonna be at a super affordable price. Besides all that, everyone you deal with there is super friendly and helpful. We just got new custom flatbeds built for our pickups, and I also got probably the coolest trailer you've ever seen built. And you can stay tuned for a video we're gonna do, and it's gonna show all of that and some more of their products also. So check out DX Trailer Sales on Facebook or dxtrailers.com.
Yeah, fear keeps people just fear of the unknown, fear of the future. And man, I've always been excited about it. You know what I mean? Crawl on and nod. I don't care. If he bucks me off, I ended up here at Northside on my 50th birthday. I entered ranch bronc riding with my boys, and CK borrowed one to get me hurt, and made a yard dart out of me, thinking that he would hurt me, but he wouldn't hurt nothing in me because I didn't enter to win. I entered because I won. I'd already won. Yeah. I set a goal at 48 years old. I'm 50 now. At 48 years old, I looked up and I was fat and out of shape, and I didn't like it. And it finally dawned on me that I wasn't at peace with how I felt and how I looked. And I said, well, I got 2 years till I'm 50. I want to be able to lose enough weight and get in good enough shape that I can go enter a ranch bronc riding or with my boys or if by myself if I want to by the time I'm 50. And same what I'm just said a while ago. I didn't like where I was, so I made a change. Yeah. I said a prayer. I wrote down some things.
Put your mic a little closer.
I wrote down some things. I preach this to people, but the mind is powerful, and God gave us, it's a powerful tool. You can recreate your whole world by your thought processes, if you just start thinking a new direction and write it down, and believe it and repeat it. And that's what I did with my weight. Haven't even told this publicly, but I wrote down in a journal 2 years ago, I wrote down lies, straight up lies. I mean, at the time, they were lies.
Like you had already achieved your goals.
Exactly. I wrote down, my body has a high metabolism. I love working out. I love lifting weights. I know how, and I love to eat right. Every bit of that was a lie. But every day I would walk in there in my workout room, which at the time was my boys' bedroom. They had all three moved out of, and had some dumbbells, just a plain little old set of dumbbells and a little easy curl bar. That's where I started. And I would get that journal out every day, and I would read those declarations out loud to myself. And I firmly believe that we look at this suit we're wearing, that's what people see, but that ain't what's real. Our spirit man is what is real. Whether you believe in God or not, our spirit person is what lives on. It's what makes our personalities unique. It's not what we look like, on the outside. It's what we're like on the inside. And our spirit man believes what we hear, and so you can retrain it too, and I just kept reading that stuff to myself over and over and over. My body, I wrote down one of them that was so radical it don't make any sense at all. I wrote down my body turns fat into lean, strong, powerful muscle. I never even heard nothing like that before, but I read it out loud to myself over and over and over. And in a year and a half, I beat my goal by 6 months. In a year and a half, I'd lost 45 pounds and got in darn good shape, And so, now I worked at it. I ain't gonna say I was laid on the couch eating ice cream, watching TV. I did get up and work at it, but I prayed about it and I said the right things, and I wouldn't listen to anything that wasn't right. And when I began to even have bad and negative thought processes about it. Like when I'd get on the scale and it wasn't moving, it wasn't going down, and I was looking in the mirror and going, man, I'm a little fat here, I'm a little fat here. I was like, I got to quit weighing. I got to quit. I realized that was causing me more problems than anything else. And so I started wearing baggy shirts, and I quit looking in the mirror and I quit weighing for about 3 months. And then when I took my shirt off in front of the mirror and weighed, I was like, wow, here we go. Just little things like that. So I've kind of done that with my whole life, and back to where I come from and who I am. After that man gave me a ride, that man and that brunette hauled me out of Ranger and gave me an opportunity. I worked for him for a while, and then I wound up finding a little house down the road that was, I was afoot. Bank come got my pickup. I had it hid in the brush, covered up with a tarp and some trees, and because they was hunting it. And sorry, I'm embarrassed about all that now, but that's just where I was at the time, 23 years old, and just lost as a duck and no guidance, and I was strung out on meth, and my life was a mess, and so I wasn't making my payment on my pickup, and anyways, but I was trying to get caught up, and I knew that within a month or so I was going to have my head right again. I knew it was a temporary thing, but the bank don't care. Anyways, they wound up, I finally just told them, here it is, come get it. But anyways, and not proud of that, but it happened. But I finally asked that old boy if I could borrow. I got all his barn built and his fence built and every chore he wanted done around there, and he fed me and gave me a little travel trailer to live in, for a while, a little bunkhouse. And I stayed in that thing for a while, and then I needed money. And I asked him if I could borrow a bicycle. He had no bike leaned against the barn. I said, can I borrow that bike and go find me a job? And he said, absolutely, if you're really that hungry. And I said, yeah. And I rode that thing down the road to a welding shop. And I had looked on the gate and seen what time they opened. I showed up the next morning an hour early. I tell people all the time, you want a job, show up an hour before the boss comes up there to open the gate. He'll hire you. He'll hire you and fire somebody else that shows up late. And I showed up with a sack lunch and my gloves, and an hour early when the boss was there, and he didn't even need any help, but he hired me, and that's exactly what he did. He got rid of a guy that was lazy, and I got his job. But I rode that bicycle back and forth to that welding shop for months in the rain and everything. I didn't care. Friday I had a check, you know what I mean? Every Friday I had a check, and little by little. And then a guy felt sorry for me, loaned me a little old yellow car. I drove that little old yellow car for a while, and then I found a house that I could buy owner finance, and I bought it. And then I bought a welding truck, and then I got a job putting fiber optic cable in around the United States. Didn't know what it was, but we were paving the way in 1997. We were paving the way for the internet coming, high speed internet. And I found the Lord on the road, started reading the Bible. I started in Matthew, and that really started, cleaning things up. But I'd already set out into a new direction with my life. I knew I was going to straighten up and clean up and all, and I walked away. When I got in the pickup with that little old brunette that day, I walked away from all that meth and all that stuff and all those friends. And back then, I feel bad for kids nowadays because the social media, it's good, but it's also that constant connection to all the old.
You can't just disappear.
Can't just disappear. And I did, and nobody even knew where I went. You know what I mean? It took months for them to find out where I was, And these kids don't have that opportunity anymore.
Yeah. When, there's lots of good points. I mean, but going back to like what you're talking about, working out and everything, writing those goals down. I think that's super important. Is like I see people that don't achieve stuff they're going, they get on these GLP-1s to lose weight. They just want a quick solution, or even before that, you go on all these fad diets or something. It just some, and it can be with making money or weight loss, but weight loss is a huge one because we're such a big nation. But
big nation. Yeah. No, you're right. We are.
But what I see is and what I've seen in my own life is you have to change your identity. Like what got me on that track was I was like, man, this is just. I've always thought of myself as like an athlete, somebody that's going to have success and all this stuff, and I was like, I wasn't living up to that image, and I was like, the image just isn't gonna be there. If I want to be that person, then I have to start doing these steps. Eating right and working out and reading and
studying,
learning stuff,
become a disciple of it.
Yeah, all this stuff. And I was actually on the way up here listening to a podcast, and it was this guy. He's a big sales trainer. I mean, I'd never heard of him before, but he's a big sales trainer and stuff now. But kind of the same story. He grew up fatherless, and he had told himself this whole story that ended up not being true. But he was big on, being able to change yourself and change your identity and be able to get past all of that stuff. And same deal. He's like, man, when I started reading, and Bradley, the host, he was like, when I started reading in about 5 years, I had a lot more money than I had before I started reading. It's like, yeah, because it opens you up to a whole new way of, a whole new thought process, whole new way of thinking. Same way with me. I think, I started getting into all that stuff, changing my identity, getting into learning, changing my body. All of it kind of came together around when I was 30, and I just turned 34, and I'm in a way completely different place now. And then on trajectory, way different than where I was, but it was all small little things. And then just like self-realization of like, what do I want to be and what do I have to do to get there?
Mm-hmm. It's a weird quest. Somewhere in there, my brother-in-law, I kind of hit on that a little bit ago, but he was married to my oldest sister when I was a year old, and they wound up divorcing later. But he was rodeo cowboy. He roped calves and was pretty good. And his name was Fred Barrett, and he wound up as far back as I can remember being just a little bitty boy.
Fred from around Abilene.
Well, yeah, Clyde was where he died, living there in Clyde.
Where he had always wore the Converses.
No, red Converse tennis shoes, and long blonde hair and rope calves, and he could really rope, But he was my brother-in-law technically, but he adopted me, and he just told me, he introduced me from the time I was a little bitty boy as his oldest son, and here I was, a fatherless child. Now I look back on it, I think he just needed somebody to help him feed and catch horses, but he taught me a lot about work ethic and the mind game. He was a positive guy most of the time. He was pretty positive. I mean, we'd be digging post holes with a rock bar with no gloves, and he'd be whistling, you know what I mean, and cutting up and laughing. That's just the way he was, you know. He'd been a POW in Vietnam and, you know, been in prison a couple of times. And so you know, if he was out on the outside free, he was having a great day. You know what I mean? And that perspective, you know, we can all look at that. You know, we tend to forget our bad days, you know what I mean? And we just start thinking that today, because I ain't this or I ain't that or I ain't got this or I ain't got that, everything's coming apart at the seams, and it's not, man. Even you like being fat Americans, that's kind of a blessing, you know what I mean? Because we're a prosperous country right now, you know. But I don't know. I gravitated towards him. Naturally, I think any young man would that's fatherless and seeking an identity. That's the greatest tragedy in the world is this quest we have for an identity. When embarrassingly, a year ago, at 49 years old, a guy asked me on a golf course. I wasn't playing golf. I'd been out there with my son building he was building a boat dock for some people, and I went by there to help him for a little bit. And when I was on my way out, and this guy flagged me down, he said, "Man, that big mustache." He'd seen me on the internet anyways. He pulled me over, and we wound up sitting under an oak tree there talking for a couple of hours. And this guy didn't know me from Adam, and he was younger than me, and I hadn't been a Christian very long. And this guy asked me a question that literally rocked me to my core. And it's the simplest question with the simplest answer that there is. But when he asked me, I didn't know the answer. He stumped me, and I'm rarely ever stumped. I mean, I just roll with it. But he said, after talking to me for a little while and hearing some of my journey and different things that I've done and businesses that I've had, I mean, I've tried everything twice, you know what I mean? And he said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Wild Will, you know. He said, no. Who does God say you are? And he said, not what you do, not that you're a cowboy, not that you can weld, not that you can ride a bronc, not that you can, you know, build stuff, not that you're handy and talented, but who does God say you are? And I mean, I was absolutely floored. I'm sitting there looking at this guy. I'm like, man, I've been a Bible-thumping Jesus freak for 27 years. I'm supposed to know the answer to this. You know what I mean? Like, I've pastored churches. I've started ministries. I've preached to hundreds of thousands of people here and there. Like, what? I'm supposed to know the answer. And it literally, I couldn't spit it out. I did not know at that moment in time. And ironically enough, I had to tell that guy, I said, well, I don't know. You know, I really don't know the answer to that. And he said, well, you said you was going on a cruise next week. And I said, yeah, my wife suckered me into that. We're going on a week-long cruise. I didn't want to go at all. I mean, that's a lot of water. And, you know, I mean, dadgum, long way to shore. No horses, no trees, no dirt. I didn't want no part of it. But I wound up going. He said, well, it'd be a good opportunity for you to rest and find out who God says you are. And I'd taken a book with me, Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights. Have you read it? Mm-hmm. That book's changed my life every time I've read it, you know. And I took it with me to read again. And there's a piece in there where McConaughey found success. He'd been acting and poking away at it for years, and little show here and there, and nothing had ever. And then he had moved to California, even. And then he was in a show that I think with Sandra Bullock, maybe. I can't remember exactly. You may remember the part, but the details don't matter. But he said the producer told him, said, this is the last day. The movie comes out tomorrow. This is the last day people are not going to know who you are, you know. And he said, to test that, I went down to this little market where you eat a sandwich and wander around in the crowd down there in California, you know. And he said, there's probably 400 people in there. And he said, I think 2 people even recognized that I was there. You know, and he said they were young ladies looking at me just because I'm handsome. And he said the next week or whatever after that movie opened, he went down there and he said it was the opposite. There was about 2 people that didn't recognize him. And it freaked him out, you know. And so he wound up going to the jungle of Africa. You remember that part? And like I think he canoed 21 days or something down in the jungle, and he got in this tent or teepee and stripped down naked one night, and it took his college alma mater, whatever, his college ring off, his necklace off, his cap off, everything that, every piece of identity. He stripped himself naked down to bare nakedness and just cried out to God all night long to show him who he was. And it was crazy that I took that book to reread with me out there, and I had no memory of that being in the book from the first time I read it. And he basically gets to the point where he says, "I'm a child of God." At the core of who he is, he's just a child of God. And and it's silly that I had to realize that through reading a book again. But that's as simple as it is. I don't need to be, like you said, I don't need to have a whole bunch of friends or a bunch of followers on social media. I mean, it's cool that I do, but I don't have to have them. And I don't have to have my name at the top of the page. I don't have to be the owner of a big, cool music venue. I don't have to be nothing. I'm a child of God, and that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing else that's any better than that provides any more peace than that right there. And so funny enough, but a month or so later, back on land, I pick a guy up that needed a ride to the gas station, and he actually walked up and knocked on my door. But anyways, I carried him to town, and this guy had an ankle bracelet on, tattooed from ears to toes, and told me he just got out of the pen, and I'm sitting there, we're pumping gas, and I think he got $2 worth, and I was like, that ain't no gonna work. I didn't even get that truck started. Anyway, we're sitting there, and I'm thinking I'm gonna trip this guy up, and I says, "Hey, who does God say you are?" And he turned around and says, "Child of God. I'm a child of God." It's like, dang. He's smarter than I am. But he'd been locked up.
Yeah.
Put
it all back into perspective.
It's just pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
A child of God is enough. We do a lot of things. You can be successful. You can be a wealthy cowboy, which is such a comical thing. Like, what? Is there such a thing?
Yeah.
But, it don't matter.
Yeah.
None of it matters. Our successes in life and accomplishments and what we buy and how big a house we have and how nice our pickup is and all that don't matter. We're just blowing through here, man.
Mm-hmm. How did you get? So you're saying you got into laying that fiber optic line around. Take us up to kind of modern times. You're business owner now. You said you've tried a bunch of different things. Kind of walk us through all that. And getting in, and then work your way into social media, I'm sure. Every brand out there claims they've built the ultimate Western performance shirt, but most of them are more involved in other industries. Finally, there's one that's actually different. Introducing Horn Knot. One detail changes the game. This has literally never been done before. A patent-pending hidden zipper pocket with an extendable lens cloth. You can clean your shades or your phone without untucking your shirt. It's simple, smart, and practical. And here's what I love. Horn Knot kept their designs classic. The most traditional pearl snaps you'll find anywhere. Great colors and vintage pocket designs. These are the same shirts I wear to work in, and you've probably seen me wearing them right here on the podcast. They even built a ladies line without fake pockets or bad fits, but real Western shirts built to flatter and function. My wife Shady shows and works in these, and there's nothing else like them. You can get yours today and save 20% with code Crockett at hornknotbrkwy.com. Horn Knot and Breakaway. Learn more at hornknotbrkwy.com.
Yeah, man, I just so I did that fiber optic deal for a year and a half or something, but we got up into North Dakota, and I got offered a ranch jobs up there. I mean, it was 100 miles from Canada and 40 miles from Montana. And I mean, it was like something out of a John Wayne movie. I mean, log cabin, log pens. I mean, it was elk, and I mean, the Little Missouri River come right through the place. And I mean, it was just, rode a wagon to church. The only way you could get to church was ride a wagon through the river, and I was been saved about a year and a half or two and really reading the Word. And I mean, I was like, this is, golly, I've died and gone to heaven. I wanted it so bad in my flesh. But something in me at the time said that wasn't right. And I just had a gut check, and I've always, even when I was a young kid, I've always listened to my gut. I really have. And I just had something in my gut, but I was wanting that job so bad. And I fasted and prayed. I'd heard or read in the Bible or something that fasting was, you could kind of twist God's arm and get an answer, or get you closer to God, or get you to where you listen better or something. So I fasted for 3 days. I love to eat. But I fasted for 3 days in North Dakota and seeking God for the answer. And he did eventually just kind of laid it on my heart. It was just clear to me that wasn't what I was supposed to do. And I wound up resigning from that job, flew home and bought a welding rig, started a welding business. I'd been thinking about doing that for years, and went to church that weekend at a church, a regular old church. And anyways, the preacher happened to be the dad of who is my wife today. We've been married almost 27 years, and he kind of hooked us up, but God and him. But she was in college in Abilene at Hardin Simmons. Her name's Pepper, and she was the most, still is the prettiest thing I've ever seen, and just the best thing I've ever met in my life. And that was all I had ever really wanted. I had seen, even when I was a young wilder than a shithouse rat. Sorry, y'all can cut that out. But I would see families that looked to be, solid, man, a woman, kids, leave it to beaver kind of a thing. And I can remember being just a young man saying, that's what I want. You know what I mean? That's what I want. And that was really my only goal in life, honestly. Still to this day, I'm in a really funky place, but because I don't have any other goals. All I ever wanted to be was a family man, be married and raise good kids. And my 3 boys have all moved out and doing their own thing. They all quit me and went off for doing, chasing their own dreams. And I'm still not over that. Got a baby girl at home. She's already taken college. And so it's just around the corner that, I'm going to be done raising kids. And I'm pretty well done now. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life now. But anyways, I got married real quick. We dated 5 months. No, she wasn't pregnant. But we went out December 10th, 1998, and May 7th, 99, we were married. She was still in college. We got married. She was going to have a career and all the things. And I said, no, I want you raising kids and cooking. I was old-fashioned minded. And I praise her daily for it. But she literally laid down her career that she went to college for to basically just, I hate to use the word serve, but like she's been a helpmate. The Bible says, pull a rib out of you and make you a helpmate. And that's what my wife has been to me. She homeschooled our kids for over 20 years and took care of me and the kids. And we raised 4 kids, and they're just amazing humans. Our kids are. And because I was a Christian and I liked to talk, it was natural that people started telling me, well, you ought to be a preacher. Well, I'm not sure that God ever told me that. But although I've done a whole lot of preaching, I've even pastored churches, and I about half-ass think it's wrong. You know what I mean? Just because you can don't mean you should. You know what I mean? But I'm good at talking, good at preaching, all the things. But, I'm not real, not real, what's compassionate, I guess is the word. And pastors kind of need to be compassionate. But anyways, so I've done some of that over the years, but I've always worked, and I'll quit construction, go get a ranch job, over the years, every once in a while, and still believing and dreaming to have that big spread of my own one day, like everybody is, and, but me and my kids. Now I'm watching them chase it, and so I don't even care if I have it anymore, as long as they get to do what they, they're having fun doing it, and I'm honored just to watch and be a part of that. But so we just fell into raising kids and how you do that, and I've been the sole provider for my family all them years. My wife didn't work, and she worked plenty in the house, but she didn't earn money. It was all on me, and that's how I had that old fashioned idea that that's what I wanted to do, and I remained self-employed all the years so that we could spend a tremendous amount of time together as a family. I went and seen 3 old men in the year of 2000. I was asked to go see 3 different old men by 3 different families that the old men were dying in the hospital in Abilene, Texas. First one I went and seen, and I didn't know him, and I just wanted to know if he was saved, if he was ready to die, because he was fixing to. And they didn't know how to ask him, and they sent me up there because they thought I could. And I went up there, and I small talked around that old man, trying to figure out, well, how do you just spring it on him? You know what I mean? I was trying to figure that out. I wasn't but about 20, 25. Yeah, in 2000, I was 25. I was just a kid myself. But anyways, that old man stopped me and says, "Cowboy, you got any kids?" I said, "Yes, sir. I got a baby boy about that long." And my oldest son, Bailey. And that old man grabbed me by the elbow and pulled me down there and made me look him in the eyes. And I was squirming. I was trying to run off. And that old man's crying. He said, "Don't work too much." And I said, "What?" It's just the opposite of everything I've ever heard my entire life. Work, 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 go, go, go. That's the American way, ain't it? You want more, you work more. So, and I wasn't no different. I've had to work my tail off since I was a little bitty boy. Mowed grass, stack people's firewood, cut firewood, everything I can do. Day work, build fence, build barns, haul hay, all the things. Want more, you work more. And that old man sat there and cried and told me, he said, "I'm laying here dying." And he said, "I know it, and there ain't no way I can change that." He said, "If I could change anything at this point," he said, I wish I could go back, and I wish I hadn't worked so much." He said, "I wish I'd spent more time with my wife and my kids and my family, my friends, people I loved." He said, "That's what I'm laying here thinking about, is those few times that we did just spend together, not working, just enjoying our time together." I kind of blew him off, said a prayer with him, left. A month later, I get called, somebody wanting me to go see an old man. This is a true story. Sounds like I'm making this up. I go back up there. That old man was dead. He died, dead, buried him. It's a different old man. The same exact thing happens, like pushing rewind and play. He pulls me down there. He said, "You got any kids?" And I said, "Yeah, I got a baby boy." He said, "Don't work too much." He said, "I worked my whole life away, give my kids more than I had when I was growing up, because I grew up so poor. We had a nice house. We kept a nice vehicle. We had all the things, but I was gone working all the time." And he said, "I regret it. They're not even here with me. I'm laying here in this hospital bed by myself, going to die." I kind of blew him off, said a prayer with him, left. A couple of months later, I got called to go see a third old man, and it's identical. Rewind, play. He says, "Young man, you got any kids?" I said, "I know where this is going. Let me guess. Don't work too much." And he said, "That's exactly right. Don't work too much." Tells me the same story. I walk out in the hall, literally. I walk out in the hall, and I stuck my hands in there, and I said, "Okay, God, okay. Apparently, I have a tendency to be a workaholic, and you don't want me to be a workaholic. Okay, I hear you. 3 times is enough."
Kind of like the 2 boats and the
Yeah. You don't have to kill another old man to get this message to me. You know what I mean? I got it. And I've told that story one time to a friend of mine that worked in a nursing home, and he didn't even faze him. He said, "I hear it all the time." He said, "Go work in a nursing home. Go spend some time in a nursing home." He said, "Everybody in there has the exact same story." He said, "You got to be kidding me." He said, "I've heard that same thing 500 times. And so that was in 2000. And at that time, I had just started a construction business, bought a piece of land on the interstate, built a big shop. Boy, I had dreams. I was going to do it. I was going to make a bunch of money and buy a big ranch. And God had another plan. He wanted me to do a whole lot less. And, You know, I fight it to this day, that old tendency to just go, work, work, work. And I'm sure a lot of people criticize me and judge me because I don't have more than I have. Tangible, things. I don't have my big nice ranch that I wanted. You know what I mean? I don't have all the nice pickups and all the nice trailers, and everything we're dragging is old and wore out. And it's just how I've raised my boys to, when their transmission went out, we didn't take it to town. We changed it right there in the driveway on the gravel, and stuff like that. But every one of my boys can pull a motor out of a pickup and put it back in if they're broke down, and they have, they've swapped motors, swapped transmissions, put clutches in, not because it was cute or I needed something to post on social media. It's because we had to, because I wasn't going working. Mm-hmm. I had another man beg me to go to work welding in the oil field for 10 years straight. And he was my dad's best friend, Fred's best friend. His name was Pee Wee Lynn from Strawn, Texas. And he's dead and gone. But he wore me out when my boys were little. Man, I'm making $70 an hour. My truck's making $35, whatever it was. And I finally one day they kind of was mashing on me because I needed the money, and it was Thanksgiving. We were sitting at my dad's Thanksgiving, and they had me hemmed up. And this is a long time ago. This is about 2003, probably 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there. And not long after them old men had taught me the best lesson in life. And I told old Pee Wee, I said, "Look, Pee Wee," I said, "how many rig welders do you know that's got any money?" He's kind of done that. He goes, "Well, well, no." And I said, "Exactly. None of them got no money. You're telling me that's the reason to go out there and drive off and leave this supermodel that I'm married to and go lay in a motel bed by myself every night when I got a beautiful wife at home and kids that need me there to raise them, and you want me to go chase money so that what? I can wind up like every other rig welder that ain't got no money?" He said, "Yeah, but you're smarter than that, Will. You'd buy cows with the money." And I said, "You're right. I actually would buy cows with the money. I would invest the money." And he said, "Well, why don't you do it?" And I said, "Well, I tell you what, I got a better one for you." I said, "Tell me one rig welder still married to his first wife." And I am not picking on rig welders. It's not that. It's oil field workers. It's whatever. It's
anything that keeps you going.
Anything that keeps you going. And I'm not saying that that's the worst thing in the world. And I'm not trying to demonize people that are stuck in that rut. But I'm going to tell you right now, the answer is less crap. We do not need the crap that we're making payments on. Mm-hmm. Not we, y'all, you, them. We don't need it. Your granddad wasn't making a 50-year house note payment. He wouldn't have done it in a million years. You heard that story about that Indian they brought to town? Showed him that big, beautiful brick home, said, "Would you like to have that?" And he said, "Well, sure." And they said, "Well, you can have it, but you got to work in this factory for 35 years. What do you think that Indian said? "Take me back to the teepee." He said, "Hell no." But we forget that because we're all caught in this rut doing what everybody else is doing. Let's have the brick house and the four-wheel drive pickup and the boat and all the stuff in the driveway. And what for? Mm-hmm. You're going to die and somebody's going to cart it off. Mm-hmm. Time with our loved ones is where it's at, And so I have resisted chasing money. I've done some of it, you know what I mean? I've got tripped up, a time or two along the way and looked up and man, I am dead set on this project and now I ain't been in the soup line, I ain't been on welfare, I ain't had to have handouts to support my family. I've worked, but I intentionally created a life that I could take my wife and kids with me to work doing, which meant I had to be the owner of the company, whatever the company was, and whatever we were doing, training colts, outside horses, buying, selling, and training, and running some cattle of our own. We rodeo contracted for a few years and kind of created the big part of the pony bronc, deal that went on, and we got a lot of that started in Vegas, and we had a lot of fun with all that. But whatever we were doing, I will turn down a job in a heartbeat if I can't take my kids. Day work or catching a cow or building a barn or whatever it is. If I can't take my kids, and when they were 5, if I couldn't take them, I didn't go. And that's just what I did. Because I didn't own my big ranch where I could just do all that with them. I turned down jobs. I didn't care about the money.
I see people make that mistake a lot is, having a big thing in the business world is work-life balance, and people talk about that. Like, your work and your life don't have to be separate. I'm the same way. I wanted to integrate my life. I'm chasing money, but I also am not going to give up my family to do it.
Right.
So it's I would say, it's hindered my business growing at a faster rate, probably. Like, I could be further, but it would come at a sacrifice of family life, which I don't want. So
yeah.
But I'm able to now, because I sat down and thought about it, made these goals. That's another thing I preach. Like, the most important thing you can do with your life is sit down, decide what you actually want out of it, and then just go towards it every day.
You bet.
I think a lot of people just don't sit down and like have a purpose.
Yeah,
but I did that, and I'm not willing to sacrifice. If I go work cows, one of my favorite things to go ranch. I want my family to come if possible, or if not, I'm going to see them. I'm not going to spend a lot of time away.
I'm going to be gone
a lot of times a lot of times they come up here. I mean, same deal. If you're the owner, they can go wherever you want.
Yeah.
And
it limits your ability.
I mean, it limits. There's also ways you can have both. I mean, nothing's impossible.
But it's got to be your goal.
Yeah,
you have to set that benchmark. It's like dieting or physical fitness, and it's got to be realistic. And and that's back to the physical fitness deal. Or goal setting. It's got to be attainable. A lot of people set I want to have $1 million in my safe by the end of the year. Well, you make $35,000 a year. How you going to do that? I mean, that's let's set that. You want 10,000 stuck back. Okay, that's doable. But $1 million ain't. Probably aside from a miracle. But it's kind of like getting in shape. If I'd have said, well, I want to have a 6-pack in 6 months, 2 years ago, well, that was ridiculous. That wasn't going to happen. I was 50 pounds overweight. You know what I mean? And so I set a realistic goal, 2 years. I thought about putting a year, and I thought, no, I know myself. You know what I mean? Just go ahead and stretch it on out there and set it by your 50th birthday, 2 years, and then what I talk to so many people. I coach so many people. I don't get paid to do it, but I coach so many people online. They message me, and I just give the information away. I mean, I had to struggle to figure it out and study and try this and try that, and it ought to be worth something, but I don't care. Whatever God gives me, I don't mind giving it back, and so I told a guy last night, I was like, just set a realistic goal and keep working towards it, but you can't. When you get in a slump or a plateau, whether it's in business or in your physical fitness journey, or your family, your time with your family, whatever it is, when you get in a slump, a rut or a plateau, that's where so many people just jump off the wagon right there, and they go, well, this ain't working. You know what I mean? And go back to eating cheeseburgers and ice cream, and you were nearly there, man. You know what I mean? You could see a little progress, and you just quit too early. And so that's you got to it's the mind game is so powerful, man. You got to get that old mind right.
I see it all the time. Like you said, in anything, we want instant gratification. And so when I wanted to start making money, I was trying these different things, and the shiny object syndrome of online, the get rich doing this, get rich doing this. I made, all this stuff. And so I'm like, okay, trying all these different things. And the biggest thing I realized was like, well, that person did it, if you can, sometimes maybe they're lying or whatever, but right. A lot of times, that person did do it. Like, it is possible.
You bet.
But how did they do it? What did they sacrifice to do it? And then
what it cost them.
Yeah. And then I started backing up, and then also, okay, well, this is what it took. Am I willing to do that? And what is the timeline? So they're on year 10 or year 5 or, however long.
Exactly.
So am I willing to invest that much time? Yeah. And so, I mean, starting anything now, I'm like, I want to set a realistic goal. Like if I'm going to add a bunch of income to my, how much I make, if I'm going to add a big number to that, like probably not going to happen next month or 6 months or something, but like 1 year from now, can we be there? Yeah. 10 years from now, can we be there? Yeah. You just got to put in the time, and then there's going to be ups and downs all through there. A good same deal, like you said. We see so much, like everybody, like especially on social media, you see if like you studied that is like, I mean, you got to hook people in, so they're going to put some clickbait out there or something. But the best I ever saw it broke down was, this is related to, it's a lot in the fitness industry too, but making money online is like, okay, your first goal should be like, let's make $1 online, somehow.
$100.
And then you go to like 100, and then you go to 1,000, and then you can go to 10,000, and then you get to 100,000, and then then you can keep progressing. But it shouldn't be like, let's immediately make 100,000 or $1 million.
Yes.
If you didn't hear Ben Hale's story on episode 69, you need to check it out. He's been earning trust in the cattle industry one handshake at a time since 1995 at Western Livestock. Western Livestock is proud to be family-owned and operated, now with 5 locations: Oklahoma City, Woodward, Comanche, and Waurika, Oklahoma, and also Knoxville, Iowa. They're proud to do business the Western way, with honesty, integrity, and a handshake that still means something. You can join them ringside or stream their sales from wherever you are. Western Livestock, where a handshake is their word, cattle are money, and timing is everything. If you're looking to buy or sell, contact Ben Hale at 940-631-BEEF. That's 940-631-2333. Check them out on Facebook or westernlivestock.com.
Well, and I've seen a huge growth in my Instagram here lately, and it's crazy. I couldn't get that thing to fly. Wouldn't nothing I put on there. I couldn't get no followers, and I hadn't even told this story, but I come in the house one day and I was kind of down in the mouth about it, you know what I mean? Like, dadgum, because I mean, if you take your time to write something or video it, it doesn't matter. If you're documenting whatever it is that you're wanting to share, the goal is for somebody to see it, you know what I mean? And the more the better, I mean, I guess, but my ultimate goal, obviously, I don't know if it's obvious. I'd like to think it's obvious, but my real only true down to the core of who I am, if somebody had said, hey, you can only do one thing the rest of your life, you know what I mean, you can only accomplish one thing the rest of your life, would be to grow the kingdom of God. That's my goal, and so there's no dollars involved in that, you know what I mean? It does cost money to do it, but it's not like it's a paying gig necessarily. And so I'm not about money necessarily, but so when I share, I mean, and I've got a little twist I throw in there now. I tell everybody at the end of the videos, go tell somebody you love them and that you're proud of them, because, we're not hearing that, that's one small thing that if that could catch on, and it is, it's reciprocating. I'm seeing it on my socials, but a lot of people go their entire life and they ain't never heard nobody say I love you or that I'm proud of you. I've been my whole life and ain't nobody told me they're proud of me yet. You know what I mean? My dad never did it. My real dad died when I was young, and Fred wasn't about doing it. You know what I mean? He wasn't going to tell you that. No way, and so he died last year, this week. And so, it's a weird thing. I did a whole lot of, to catch you up to where I'm at now, I did a whole lot of the journey that I have taken in life, a lot of the businesses that I've had, and a lot of the adventures that I've had in business, honestly, were part of that identity quest, part of the, not really just about the money even, because I've already admitted that I'm not so much concerned with becoming wealthy. I'm not willing to trade my 35 years working in the factory for the brick house. So there's been other motives there, but really they've been identity quest, like seeking affirmation more than anything. Waiting for my father to tell me, hey, I'm proud of you. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing. And so, when that opportunity's gone, when Fred died a year ago, and he didn't tell me, and he wasn't, you know what I mean? I mean, he's just how he was. I'm not knocking him. It's just how he was, and he was good for me in so many ways, but that just wasn't part of his nature. And it is the case in so many families, so many dads, they lack the integrity or the humility, whatever you want to call it, to just stop and tell their son, their daughter, hey, I am proud of you. You're doing, you know what I mean? And man, boy, you talk about building fire under you, you know what I mean? But it all circles back to just resting in the peacefulness of knowing that I'm a child of God and God's proud of me. I don't have to prove nothing to nobody else the rest of my life. I don't have to do nothing for anybody any business, any title, nothing. It doesn't matter. No name tag, nothing is ever going to top that one, knowing that I have the peace that I'm a child of God and He's proud of me. And so, man, I'm in a restful place with that. And it's kind of, I'm in a unique place because now I'm like, well, I don't really have any goals anymore. You know what I mean? I got to get some, I guess, but at the same time, do I really? You know, I mean, I've been married forever. We're super happily married, and you know, we're in the process of selling some properties and some businesses, and regrouping, you know, and being a little more fluid with our time, maybe, you know, possibly. We got big ideas. Me and my boys, all of us, we're all been praying about partnering with somebody on a big ranch, you know, maybe, where we could all work the same place, you know, since I can't afford one myself, you know, maybe. But, you know, if we don't, it ain't no big deal either. We're all still happy and peaceful, you know, but we would love to be able to all work together instead of one in Colorado and two, you know, then strung out the way we are. We all want to do it together. And I think it'd be an asset, you know, to ourselves or however, but you know, if that happens, great. If not, I'm still happy, still have that inner peace. But we're transitioning as we're nearing the phase of being an empty nester as a married couple. You know, our baby girl's fixing to be 17 in a month. You know, and so graduate this year. You know, so we're in a different place, and so I'm in a spot where, and I have this kind of, you know, that's what I told somebody. Who was it that recommended me? Whatever. It doesn't matter, I guess. But somebody talked to me about coming, and I was like, well, man, I got a twisted idea of what wealth looks like. I don't know that it's going to fit into the typical idea of wealth, you know, because to me, time is money. Yeah. You know, time is wealth. Time together, love is wealth. And then I have an abundance of all that, man.
Yeah, wealth is just an abundance of assets. If you look up the definition, and it's,
I never have.
And it's, I mean, they talked about, if I remember this right, I'm pretty sure they talked about wealth like early on in the Bible before like you had all this stuff that you could consider, you know, before there was planes and cars and all this other stuff. So it's just assets and value.
You bet.
And I say that all the time, like time, I mean, like you said, but really, like, if time is money is what a lot of people say, but time is really way more valuable than money.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting with that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what I say. Like, I'm not going to sacrifice my time for a little bit of your money. Like, my time is super valuable to me. So you're either going to pay me a lot for my time, or I'm just going to go without that money. So it's a trade-off. You know, it's sitting down and figuring out what you want out of life. Like, are you willing to make the sacrifice? Or are you willing to hold out until somebody pays you what you're worth?
Yeah. Exactly.
Or are you gonna sit at home and go without whatever that money would have got you? But I say that all the time. I mean, time is the most important thing you have. Like you said,
but it's funny though, because it costs money to have time. You know what I mean? I mean, like, to have good time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you want to sit on your porch and enjoy the sunset with your wife and kids. Well, somebody's got to pay for the porch. Yeah. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I saw a deal just like a day or so ago, maybe today, about it was Warren Buffett, and I guess he said this, but it was on Facebook, and it was like a meme type deal. But it said money with no time isn't worth anything, mm-hmm. and then time with no money is, you know, I can't remember if it said it's not that much fun or whatever.
There is a balance, you know, and I don't know that I've achieved, you know, that, but I feel like I have. You know, we've had some struggles that ain't worth repeating, you know, as far as financially over the years, and most people wouldn't consider me even close to wealthy, you know. But compared to where I come from, you know what I mean, and what I started with, you know what I mean, that borrowed bicycle that I rode back and forth to that welding shop, I think I've knocked home run. You know what I mean? I ain't ready to retire just yet, but I love working and I love doing things. But I'm kind of like what you said a while ago, guy. The other day tried to get me to go do a job for him, and he wasn't willing to pay what I'm worth, and I'm pretty valuable character, and so I just said, hey, look, if you ain't gonna pay me that kind of money, I'm gonna take my grandson fishing. You know, if I ain't gonna make no money, I'm gonna go do something that I really enjoy. You know, and that's what I did. I went fishing with my grandson. You know, it's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, having the freedom, I guess you'd say, to be like, you know,
choosy.
Yeah, you're I'm either gonna you're either gonna pay me a lot or I'll go do something else. But and it doesn't bother me either way. I'll come help you.
One of the easiest ways to get to that place where you can have that choice is to have less crap on credit. You know, and I hope you ain't got no banker sponsors, but I'm just telling you, it's not where it's at.
Yeah,
I spoke at a men's father-sons retreat here a while back, and there was a big old tank down about 200 yards that everybody was fishing in. It was supposed to be a fishing trip, camp out, you know, father-son retreat deal, and I don't know, there was 150 kids and dads there. I mean, there's a pretty good wad of them, and I was in my teepee over there, and I brought my teepee, and that's it, and my bedroll, and half of them brought a trailer with one of them buggies on it, them cars, them four-wheeler, what are they, the side by side, yeah, big old things with chrome wheels on them and all that, to tote their little fat boy back and forth to the tank down there 200 yards, you know what I mean? And I ripped them when I got up and spoke. I said, your granddad would kick your ass if he knew you were making payments on a buggy to carry your boy back and forth to the tank, pretty much, you know what I mean? But because they're not probably paid for. I'd be willing to bet if I asked every one of them guys there, they ain't but one or two of them might have been paid for. They didn't write checks for them. They hawk them. You know what I mean? They're hawked. You know what I mean? And everybody's hawked to their gills. You know, and it's just, boy, it's stressful. There's no end to it. You can't. It's kind of like that Indian. You got to work in that factory for 35 years. By the time you get it all paid off, it's wore out, and you're wore out. You ain't got no more energy left, and I can't say that I don't believe that's what God intended. I do not.
And it's really perspective, because one thing I've realized that I think a lot of people, you'd think it'd be common sense, but a lot of people don't realize is like everybody's different. Everybody wants something different out of life, and I want to drive. I mean, I'm trying to provide a lot of value and make a lot of money, and I love the fancy things and owning things, and like I said, though, I'm not sacrificing my time, but I'm also kind of envious. So like I look up to like a high performer like Elon or something like that. You know, they're maniacs, of another world. But also I'm envious of
next level, yeah.
But I'm also envious of just like, man, what if I didn't want all this stuff? Like, I want the new Hughes trailer and the brand new Ford pickup with the Hughes bed on it and all this and a big ranch and ride nice horses. Well, if that's all I wanted, I could just go work at the Sixes or Pitchfork or something like that, and you get all that stuff,
100%.
And then you get to live that life, but you don't own it. For some reason, I have something in me that makes me want to own it, which is a blessing and a curse.
I think it's an insecurity, and I'm not pointing at you. I'm talking about in me. Yeah. When I feel myself, the same kind of things. I'll tell you what happened. Just about a month ago or 6 weeks ago, I was behind the chutes. My boys were in bronc riding, and a friend of mine that has a camp on the Sixes was there, and Kyle, and I love that guy. He had a nephew that was in that bronc riding, and we were both behind the chutes, and I didn't know he was going to be there. It surprised me. Turned around to see him. I gave him a big old hug, and dang, I love you. And anyways, I love Kyle. He got kind of tricked into going off in the oil field for a minute. He's from up there, and his daddy's worked there. That's all. It's all he knows. But he went off in the oil field, got kind of talked into the chase of money for a minute, and he hated every minute of it. Come back, to Guthrie, and of course, wasn't no camps open. And I seen him up there. My boy was up there working at Pitchfork, a couple of years ago. And I love this story, but it's and I hope he wouldn't mind me telling it. I don't think he would, but I seen him. We were at the sale, the 60s horse sale. I can't even remember what to call it. The big
Return to
the Bermuda. Yeah. And my boy was there because he was helping the Pitchfork, and they were there, had horses in it and all. And we were back there behind the mare barn, and Kyle was back there bringing mares up and back. And I talked to him. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm working at the mare barn." And I said, "Well, that's kind of not that glorious, glamorous, And he said, "No." He smiled real big, and he goes, "But I'm horseback." And he said, "I'm here." And he said, "Eventually, a camp will open up, and I'm here. I'm already here." He said, "I know what I'm doing." He said, I'll get me a camp." And, he called me here, good, I don't know, been 6-8 months ago, and told me that he got a camp, and at Sixes. And so the first time I'd seen him in person was the other day at that bronc riding. And I said, "Well, you got a camp now?" And he just smiled like a possum. I mean, he said, "I'm so happy I got me some cows to look after." And I walked away from that, and I said, he's right. He's right. It don't matter whose brand is on them. If you love tending cattle, you love tending stock, it makes you happy doing that, then it don't matter whose name is hanging on the gate or on the side of the pickup. It don't really matter. Because, unfortunately, time's flying, buddy. I mean, it's flying. We're both going to be old before we know it. You know what I mean? I'm already halfway there. I don't know. It's just like I don't care anymore. I'm like you. I'm like you were saying earlier about what people think. I used to think that I had to have my name on everything, and I had to have my brand on everything and all that, and I'm in a different frame of mind now. It's kind of all, and then to see how quick my boys got grown, even though we did spend 9 times more time together than the average people. Catching cows and day working and training colts and building buildings, and we did everything together. I mean, I built a big old shop for a guy one time with my boy that was 11 years old. Trace, that youngest boy. I was on one I-beam, he was on the other, running 70-18 uphill welding them beams. Me and that 11-year-old boy built that whole shop. My wife run the forklift for us, and that guy come out there one day and looked up there on the top of that ladder and seen Trace. He come over to me, he said, "That little boy's welding my beams up?" And I said, "Well, it's not your average little boy," you know what I mean? But just trust me. You hired me, and I could subcontract if I want to. Trust me, he welds as good as I do at 11 years old, But we spent a lot of time together. They're gone now, and But I don't care. I don't care whose name's on the top of the page anymore. I'm over it because life is it's fleeting. It's very quick, and true peace and true happiness and that's what should be all of our goal. Peace and happiness, getting along with everybody and being square with the Lord and being square with each other and not owing, our soul to the devil for everything we want. It's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, that's it.
You can have that nice stuff. If you can write a check for it, go get it. That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
But
that's it. I mean, I think it's, like I was saying earlier, sit down, what's going to make you happy? What's going to put you at peace? And then go after it, whether it's becoming president of the United States and all the stress and stuff that goes along with that, or, if you don't own anything, if you're homeless on the street and you're happy, I mean,
yeah, whatever.
That's it. That's like,
whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. That's, there's that story about Trump walking along, whenever that was a long time ago, he's walking down the street and there's a bum laying there, and he said, I think he was with Melania, and he said, "That bum right there has got $900 million more than me right now," because he was in debt real bad.
So bad, yeah. You bet. He's richer than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of truth to that, and it's a lopsided thing because the world is, we're basically programmed, and I'm not like a a conspiracy kind of guy, but like we kind of are trained almost in the worldly way of living. Like you go to school, grade school, you get good grades. You want to play sports, well, you got to get good grades. Accomplishments, you know what I mean, achievements. And so you play sports well enough, then maybe you can get a college scholarship, and then you do well in college. Then maybe you can get a degree, and then you get a career started, and you make good money there, and you get this other number called credit. And if you do good with it, and it's high enough, then you can get that brick house and that huge trailer and all the stuff and a few cows and all the crap, and you can spend your life 30, 40 years getting it all paid for, and then you can die because you're old and tired. Yeah. I'm kind of like the Indian. I'll just sit over in this teepee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've kind of come full circle. I'm in a weird place. I don't know what to tell people right now, but you know what I mean about old Wild Will. But at the same time, I have this incredible passion to help people. Like I sometimes wish I didn't. You know what I mean? Like it would probably be, probably easier if I didn't care. A guy told me one time, he said, you care a lot. And I said, no, I don't. I kind of bowed up at him. I was like, no, I don't get it. And he's like, no, you do. You really care about people. And it can tell. He was like, you can tell. In fact, my son told me a while back, he's like, you know why podcast people love talking to you? Because he said, they can tell you really care. You authentically care about their story. You authentically care about what they're doing and what they've done and their history. You really care. And a 17-year-old boy said that to me, you know what I mean? And it really felt good, but it would probably be easier if I didn't care. I do care about people. I do care. I want people to do better. You know what I mean? Not better than the neighbor, to be prideful and arrogant. Not that, but like I'm saying, better than I was. You know what I mean? Whether it's chasing wealth and a brick house, if that's what you set, if that's what your goal is and you're cool with trading 35 years at the factory for it, go for it. That's what makes you happy and content, get after it. But getting off of drugs and, getting healthy, I tell people daily on socials, I truly feel like God is I truly believe that we're going to be checked on how well we took care of this right here, because it's as simple as this. I've got 4 children. My wife and I have 4 children. If I gave all 4 of my kids a brand new house when they moved out, 5 years later, I come back. I live out of state, and I come back, check on them. And they have let the dogs poop in the house, not cleaned nothing up, and they've just let it run down and not taken care of it at all. I am not going to be happy with them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the Bible says that this is the temple of the Holy Spirit. It is. God used to live in a little box, a tabernacle, the holiest of holies, behind the curtain. And when Jesus died on the cross, not turn this into the church service, but he says the Spirit of God was loosed upon the earth to indwell in all of us. And so this is the temple of God. He ain't sitting up at that church house waiting for somebody to show up on Sunday mornings. That's not, that's not where he's at. He's right here. He's with us. And so if this is where he's supposed to live, I think we should do our utmost, we should do everything in our power, in our ability to take care of it. Not vape, not smoke, not drink, not, do drugs, not overeat, not lay around. Now I ain't, trying to pick on everybody, but because I've done all that, except vaping. I hadn't done that.
Well, I wanted to get around to that before we wrapped up is what brought us together was social media and the messages you put out. It's a lot of what you're eating, what you're doing, and you're tying that in and to the Word of God and all that. So kind of talk about your journey with social media, why you started it, and what you put out there. Willow Creek Cattle Company develops and breeds hundreds of heifers a year for their customers. They can buy, develop, and AI heifers to the bull of your choice. They're located in Northeast Kansas in the heart of the Flint Hills. So they can also start and grow your grass cattle. The U.S. cow herd is currently at the lowest inventory ever recorded, and with these record high calf prices, Willow Creek Cattle Company can provide a turnkey supply of AI bred heifers to help you rebuild your herd. Give them a call for all your backgrounding and heifer development needs. 620-344-2795.
You know, social media and me go way back. I got Facebook in 2009 maybe, something like that, and I loved it. I was the guy before that was carrying a camcorder on my shoulder, literally hanging around my neck, catching cows. I kid you not. I have done that, tied it in a tree with a tie string to try to film. I'm talking about them big camcorders my wife had, great, not a little cell phone. And I've been that guy.
You liked it way before it was cool.
Yeah, well, it wasn't easy. And I'm talking about it was a pain in the rear back then to share it. Back then, I was just so I could show somebody later at my house on a VHS. And I mean, like, I was the guy. I've loved documenting things. Maybe I'm supposed to, be filming. I don't know, maybe a producer or something. I don't know, but I just love documenting things. And sharing. I love sharing good times, good fun experiences. I enjoy sharing them. They're cool, interesting things. And so I've been like that since I was a kid. And so when social media came along and I figured out how to do it, film it and then go home and plug it to a computer and download it and then hook that computer to Facebook and then upload it. I mean, it was a time-consuming thing. And then YouTube came along, and I seen some pretty instant success on YouTube. My channel blew up on there, and I mean, it ain't nothing huge, but I mean, millions of views on 9, 10 million views. I mean, it was crazy. Never made a nickel off of it. It wasn't about that. And then all of a sudden, about 5 years ago, I just got locked out of YouTube. They just completely locked me out. They never emailed me, told me what I did wrong or nothing. They wouldn't let me post anymore. I could get on there and look at my videos, but they wouldn't let me upload anything. And I went and hired professionals and tried to get people to hack back into it and get around it and email, anyways. I was stuck there for a long time, and I was always doing Facebook. I love communicating. I love sharing and people feeding back. And so my journey on social media, man, one day I think I was catching a cow, or me and my boys were gathering some cows, and they were little bitty. And I had a kind of an epiphany moment of something that I felt like God had showed me about relationships to him in comparison to what was going on with me and my boys there that day. You know what I mean? And father, son, and, we're the son, he's the father. And it just hit me, and I thought, man, this is worth sharing. And I hung a recording device in a tree there real quick to document it and posted it, and it blew up. And I got back from the mic. But, I've had fun with Facebook, and then everybody tried to get me on TikTok for a long time. I didn't want to do that. We spend enough time looking at all that stuff. I didn't want something else to look at. And so social media and me have kind of had a love-hate relationship because of the whole, I don't even know how to say it, algorithm thing, and like what works and what don't work in time. And I've fought all that for years and give up on it. And here a while back, my story with my Instagram was that I had got to a place where I was just frustrated with it, and I see the potential. Like, I know that I can click a button and potentially reach millions of people with my message, whether I'm talking about God, just God, or fitness and weight loss, or eating right, or some whatever. And it's a powerful tool. And I came in the house one day, and I literally got on the floor and I said, "All right, God." You ever seen that movie Hacksaw Ridge?
Mm-hmm. I know what it is, but I've never seen it.
So there's a guy in there, and he in a bad piece of the war, tons of wounded soldiers, and by himself he keeps going back in there and dragging out wounded soldiers and maybe dead, but wounded soldiers. And every time he'd come out in the movie, he'd lay down there, take a breath, and say, "All right, Lord, just help me get one more." And he'd get up and run back in there and drag another out. And I forget, and it's a true story, I forget how many dozens of men that guy saved that day.
He was like an unarmed medic or something.
Yeah, exactly. He refused to carry a weapon. I mean, caused a big ruckus in the military, and they had to bend some things to get him in. He became a medic. And anyhow, because of his faith, he just said, "I ain't killing nobody anyways." And so Powerful story, it really was. But I got down on the floor and I said, all right, Lord, you know me. I tend to have the big eye. You know what I mean? I know I do. But I said it like this. I said, I know darn good and well Billy Graham rented a Coliseum. He wasn't hoping 2 people would show up. You know what I mean? So, but I'll just say this. Just give me one more. I am cool with just giving me one more. Just one more person to be able to hear the message about Jesus Christ through my social media. And that day, I think I had 2,500 followers on Instagram, and in like 30 days, I had 40,000 followers. It was it's unbelievable. I don't know what I did. I didn't do nothing except get in the floor and say, God, I'm okay with if I just reach one more person, and that's all I ever get to the rest of my life. I'm content with that. Mm-hmm. And it just something happened in the click of my heart, and God got me. I don't know if that's what He'd been waiting for all this time or what.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, there's so much. You get a bunch of negativity and stuff, comments or whatever, and all this stuff. But then, like, when you're just getting fed up with it, it seems like in my experience, anyways, like you'll get a message. It's, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for. I needed to hear that today, or you changed my life, or whatever.
It's unreal.
And if you can do that just one time, then all of it's worth it.
Oh man, I got a message the other day from a guy from Australia. I'll never meet this guy. You know what I mean? He said, Mr. Barrett, I've been following you for 8 years on social media. And I mean, he's never liked, his name was something that I think I would have, you know what I mean? If I'd ever seen a like or a comment from him, I think it would have stuck because it was I can't remember it now, but it was something that, very familiar to me. And he's just been one of those silent viewers on there, and I don't even like them. You know what I mean? Like, I get aggravated if they don't interact. I'm like, I'm deleting you if you don't interact. But anyways, I would have deleted that guy probably. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, he messaged me this incredible, just, I love how you've raised your family, you know what I mean, your children, and how y'all do things together. And he just went on, and he said, I want you to know that I wound up giving my life to Christ. I got baptized a couple of months ago. I got married. I'm hoping to raise some boys someday, and I just hope that I can live my life somewhat like you have, and live my, raise my family like you did. And I hope I can reach out to you every once in a while for some advice, if possible, raising a family. And I sat there crying like, what? I mean, this guy, I don't even know this guy. He's not family. I'll never meet him. You know what I mean? But that's the power of social media. 8 years that guy's been watching me, and I got kind of embarrassed for a minute because I'll throw some bait out there now and then. You know what I mean? If you look at my stuff, I'm liable to post a picture of my wife's butt or whatever on there. You know what I mean? But of course I'm proud of it. But still, it's clickbait too. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I was like, golly, have I dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's, for 8 years? Heck no, I hadn't, thank God for grace. Mm-hmm. But here's this guy all the way in Australia. 8 years he's been watching me. So, it's worth doing. Mm-hmm. It's worth doing. A little bit of that will go a long ways. Yeah. Somebody comes back and says something like that to you, it's like, okay, it's worth it. It's worth all the negative chatter because, man, I catch it on there. Yeah, I catch it. I catch it.
Yeah, it's
death threats. Death threats. I can't tell you how many death threats my kids get on there. Death threats to my children when they were 8, 9 years old over wearing spurs on a horse in the round pen that we were breaking, And just literally, they'd rather the 8-year-old boy be dead than that horse with 1/4-inch thick leather on his hide, on his side, get poked in the belly with a spur,
I heard it real good. I think it was Ty Lopez was talking. He's a big influencer type guy in the business world, and he was saying that like it's some kind of crazy number. And
Can I drink this or just for look?
Yeah, it's some kind of crazy number, some kind of crazy number of like people with mental disorder in America, like 1 in 5 or something. And I've heard it like this is a real statistic, whatever it was. And he's like, so if you just think about that. Those are the people that comment on social media. And he said before that, they wrote letters, They're not the people like you're watching before we had social media, you just had TV. and 5 channels or whatever, and you're sitting there flipping. If something's on that you don't like, most people would just, 4 out of 5 people would just keep flipping. The one person sits there and watches it, gets pissed off, writes a letter, or calls the 800 number of the company. They've just been crazy, and now they get the power to just comment immediately on their, on a post or whatever. So you get to thinking about that, and it's like, well, that person's just crazy.
I like that. I'm gonna try to add that to my little file. Try to remember that. Just a nutcase.
Yeah. Okay. What advice would you give to somebody? I usually say like somebody starting out or something.
On social media?
No, what advice would you give somebody that wants to change their life?
Well, obviously, get started. But, I have to, zero everybody back to God, because without God, nothing's possible. But I understand not everybody's going to go down that road. I wish they would. Wish they'd take my advice on that, number one. But, I think, love is really, 1 John 4:8 says God is love. And he who loves not knows not God, for God is love. And so, I preach this a bunch on my socials, but a lot of people give me grief on there because I sometimes post without my shirt on, or I'm flexing or showing off my achievements. And I can put, like, also 2 years ago, I was a fat boy, you know what I mean? So I am proud of it, but I tell people, number one, you got to love yourself and it gets some mixed signals, but it's the truth. If you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. You can't be good to anybody else. If you don't like yourself, you can't like anybody else. If you're not your number one fan, it's going to be hard to be very successful in anything in life. And I mean, people argue with me about that. Well, that's just prideful. That's ridiculous. And I'm like, man, take it all the way back to Genesis 1, when God created the world. He spoke everything into existence. And at the end of almost every single thing, it says God went, "That's good." He spoke the earth and he looked at it and said, "Man, that's good." God was proud of what he accomplished right there in that moment, each and everything. And so, I don't think it's ungodly to be proud of yourself and to have self-esteem and self-respect. I think it's one of the greatest tragedies we're seeing, and social media can feed the opposite, because you look at a guy that looks like everything in his life is perfect. He's got the big house, he's got the the body, he's got the car, he's got the wife, he's got the job, he's got the money, whatever it is. In comparison, to what we don't have, where we are, and we ain't there yet. Like you said, it might have took him 10 years to get there. And then again, it might be a rented house, might be a rented old lady, might not even be his. What's real? And so, but love yourself, number one. Get to the place where you can be proud of yourself. And I said it the other day, but if you're not proud of yourself, you're going to have to start doing something that does make you proud of yourself, because you cannot accomplish anything without being proud of yourself. I don't care who you are. Every old crotchety old farmer that's got a ranch and a farm and all that, even whether they ever say it out loud or whether they ever, say it on social media or any of that, they're proud of what they're doing. You know what I mean? They built a barn to cover that tractor. They built a fence to keep them cows on out of the road. They're proud of it. You know what I mean? They built it straight. You know what I mean? And they did that intentionally. Pride in your efforts. And so scaling it back to the very basis of just starting with me, because you're the only one that's going to fix anything. The only one that's going to make any changes is you.
And then it spreads. I'm a huge believer in that.
It does.
You fix yourself, lead yourself. Leadership starts with you.
You bet.
Being able to have accountability for yourself and discipline for yourself. And then you can go outwardly to your family, to your wife and your kids.
You don't even have to try. It's the dangest thing. And I'll back that up with my fitness journey. I'm not going to, if he was sitting here, he'd chime right in with me. But my oldest son, Bailey, had gotten chunky. And fatter than I was, and he was too young. He's 24 4 years old, and I felt bad for him because, you know, like, no, it's not the worst thing in the world for somebody to be fat. Some people are fat and happy and love it. That's fine. That's your business. But I could tell with my son, he'd been an athlete, been a bronc rider. He'd been in high school, won 2 state championship in high school, playing football at Strawn. And so he had been an athlete, and I could tell it was messing with his self-esteem, and just he wasn't chasing girls. And I'm not saying that chasing them and catching them doing the wrong things is what we should be doing, but he wasn't even dating, you know what I mean? Like, what's the matter with you, man? You ought to be chasing skirt, you know what I mean? Like trying to find a wife and get me some grandkids, man. Like, come on. But he didn't feel good about himself. He had insecurities because of it. And honestly, that's some of why I got so dedicated about my fitness journey. I didn't tell nobody that. But I told my wife, but I was like, man, maybe if I can do this, and I knew I could. You can do anything you want to do. The Bible says, with God, all things are possible, you know? And so I knew I could do it, you know? And I hadn't been fat forever, you know what I mean? It just come up on me. COVID helped a lot of it. But anyways, I thought, he's living in my bunkhouse. It'll rub off on him. I was up my hopes. And finally, it took a while, but, you know, he come in the house one day and he said, all right, damn it. He said, I'm sick of taking family pictures with you. You're skinny, you're 49 years old, and I'm fat. He said, I'm going to start eating like you're eating. And I said, okay. I meal prep. Just, well, help yourself. I'll feed you too, you know, just eat. And he said, I'm going to start doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I didn't ask him. I didn't encourage him. It was unusual for me because I'm usually that guy that's poking somebody in the belly. But I didn't. I just led by example, like you're saying. And next thing you know, man, that kid has lost 60-something pounds. He's skinnier than I am, in great shape. And he got his life. He went back to riding bareback horses and went to Colorado to ride bareback horses for the summer in that circuit up there. And you know, got a job guiding hunters and, you know, packing, and he got his life back because he lost the weight and got his self-esteem back. And next thing you know, my other son, he wasn't nowhere near, you know, out of shape, but same way. It kind of, well, I guess I could lose a few pounds. And next thing you know, my wife joined the gym. She didn't need to, but, you know, you can always improve. I don't care who you are, but, you know, and I took over the kitchen. I do all the cooking and the cleaning in the kitchen anymore. And not saying my wife did it wrong, but she wasn't conscientious about carbs and protein and all that. And protein's the answer. You got to eat protein a lot.
Yeah, I just think like it all starts inside, and then you can outwardly lead your house, and then you can lead your community, and then you can lead your state. I mean, it's a compound effect.
It does. And as far as the social media thing for me, originally I was not going to post anything about it because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed about where I was. You know, now, although I had been making videos and stuff forever, but, you know, and doing my thing, I wasn't posting about the fact that I was out of shape, you know what I mean? And I didn't want to share that. I mean, I'm like anybody. It wasn't naturally something I wanted to do. And I wrestled that. When I first got started, and, you know, I thought, man, I ain't putting none of this on there. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm just going to keep this to myself. But I couldn't. I just thought, you know what? There might be somebody out there that can, you know, jump on here on this bandwagon with me. And so I started, you know, I just was kind of real about it, you know, and just authentic, you know, just here's where I'm at and here's what I'm doing. And it blew up. I can't believe how many people message. There's a massive need for learning how to eat better, you know, and learning how to, it really isn't about working out. You don't have to work out, you know. All the gym does, all weights do is just make what you have look better. You know what I mean? But to lose weight, you don't have to go to the gym.
And kind of on that subject, I always ask what are some good books or resources in general, podcasts, YouTube channels, or anything to kind of any of that fitness, health, life.
Dude, I wish there was. People beat me up about writing it, but I couldn't find it. And I mean, that's one of the most frustrating things in the world of information. There's too much information. And in my studies, it's tiring. That's why you can become a fitness influencer and get paid money to coach people. I don't, but I've offered, but ain't nobody bought nothing yet. But I mean, I guess I would, but but like
maybe you can coach me.
Well, I mean, but here's the thing. It is a stinking nightmare to get on the Google and type, what do I eat? Or what should I cook? Because boom, you're just blasted with, and then the algorithm thing takes on. And then the fact that you Googled it, well, next thing you know, you can't even look nothing else up because you're getting fed all this stuff over here. They're wanting you to buy.
My deal will be like reels in line. It'll be like, the reason you can't lose body fat is because you're running. Then this one says the reason you can't lose body fat is because you're not running.
Every other one says the opposite thing. And so it's like, what the crap? It's tiring.
Yeah.
It's tiring. And so I went through all that. I mean, it was labor. I mean, it was labor to dive. And so I never found anything that just literally that I could just say, okay, this works, or this is factual. I would read, and like you said, that didn't work, or that worked for him, but does it mean it's going to work for me? And there's a lot of that goes on, you know what I mean? And so for me, it was trial and error. I'd try, rice and chicken. Well, I finally figured out that rice doesn't work for me. Rice makes me fat. I can't believe it. Them chinks, little skinny guys. Never fitness influencer in the world is eating rice and chicken. But it made me fat, so I can't eat it. I have to, if I want carbs, I have to eat sweet potatoes, But I didn't know. I'll just tell you my journey real quick. I didn't do the carny deal like a nut or nothing, like 100%. But when I got started, I realized I learned the one thing I learned up front when I started digging into this is that we should shoot for a gram of protein per pound of body weight, per pound of desired body weight. So if you're a 140-pound guy and you're wanting to bulk up to 170, you need to eat 170 grams of protein a day to get there, at least. Or if you're a 200-pound man, you're wanting to drop down to 150, you eat 150 grams of protein a day. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that ain't easy to do. I'm bumping in there about 170 pounds right now, and to eat 170, I ate a humongous meal earlier, and it was only 70 grams of protein. So I was 100, that was for breakfast. So I was still lacking 100. So, I mean, it takes some serious effort. In the world we live in, if you're out and about working, you can't, even like a T-bone's 25, it's only 25 grams of protein for a whole big old T-bone. Well, I mean, so you got to eat 8 T-bones, you know what I mean, in a day? Come on, man, who can do that? So that became a nightmare. Like, and I got to looking at what my wife was cooking. No offense, glad she was in the kitchen, but there wasn't no protein in it, you know what I mean? Be a little bit of spaghetti. I mean, come on, there was like 2 ounces of meat in the whole bowl and 150 carbs. So the carb protein thing is just so lopsided. And I'm going to tell you, 99% of Americans, it's just so lopsided. And the expenditure, and it comes down to calories. And I hate counting them, but I struggled there for a while with losing the last little bit of weight out, gushy weight that I was trying to get off. And it come down to calories. Even my protein drinks that I mix, I finally sat down, and the guy was telling me that, and I was like, oh, come on, man. And I sat down, and between the meals I was eating and the 2 protein drinks I was drinking every morning and night, I was blowing my calorie deal away. I was over it twice. Well, no wonder I couldn't lose that weight. So the calorie in, calorie out thing is legit. My dad said this about Vietnam. We'd be at Thanksgiving, and somebody at Thanksgiving, he was big on Thanksgiving. He's dead now, but he'd see people, plate that deep in food, and he'd say, I hear them all the time talking about they can't lose weight, but I'm going to tell you, in that hole in Vietnam, they hand you a little old spoon about that big full of rice and beans once a day. He said, the fattest guys they threw in there lost weight. He said, I'm going to tell you right now, you limit what you eat, you will lose weight. I don't care who you are. And he said that to me for years, and being funny, but he's right. So the calorie in, calorie out thing is legit. And so, and if we look at what we're burning daily for most most Americans live a pretty lethargic lifestyle. You know what I mean? You drive to work, you don't walk to work. You know what I mean? You get in a car and you drive to work. You walk 12 feet from the front door of the car. You know what I mean? Like then you get to work, the parking, you know, I mean, you just elevators. I mean, nobody's taking the stairs. So the steps thing and we're not burning calories. We're not burning much, but we're just taking it in. And so to up the protein and limit the carbs was what I did for over a year. I just concentrated on eating protein. I would go out to a restaurant, and if I had the money, I'd order a steak and a tilapia. I mean, I would, and I wouldn't eat the other crap that went with them. I'd just eat the steak and the fish, you know. My sister-in-law come to me one day at a restaurant, and I'm watching you eat, and every time we get together, you just eat and eat and eat and eat. She says, the more you eat, the skinnier you're getting. And I was like, that's funny, ain't it? But that's the way it was. I couldn't eat too much if I was eating the right thing. You know, the lean proteins. And I had butchered a big old longhorn bull, that one I got mounted on the bar on the wall at my dance hall. Old Fred. I had butchered him because he kept jumping the fence, and I wasn't going to feed him to the coyotes. So I butchered him in longhorn beef, and he was a big old bull. It's lean, super lean. And I look back on that, I forgot about that. But for a year, I was eating lean longhorn beef every day, you know. I got another buddy, he ranches and raises his own cattle, and he told me the other day he's struggling with his weight. And he told me, he said, ain't nobody eats any cleaner than I do. He said, I mean, telling you, I eat super clean. I eat protein. That's what he eating. He said, beef, my beef. And I said, yeah, it's Angus. Look at it. It's not the same as longhorn or venison, you know what I mean? Even though it's good for you, it's better than, you know, cake. But calories, it's high in calories, you know. Yeah. And so that was what I did. I didn't know nothing about what I was doing. I just stumbled my way through it and kept reading, kept Googling, kept reading. And I'd take a bit of this and I'd try it for a little while. I wouldn't try it long enough. I did that for a while. I'd try something for 2 weeks. Well, that don't work. And then finally a guy that's a big old meathead guy, he said, hold up, man. He said, if you don't try it 6 weeks, you ain't going to know. You know, and okay. And so that helped me a lot to just chill out, relax, and I'd try like the rice thing or the potato thing. But I didn't eat a potato or a chip or a French fry, Cokes. I quit drinking. I don't know that I had a drinking problem. I just drank socially. Basically, I've never iced down beer by myself in my life. I'm not that guy, but I own a dance hall, so it was kind of easy, you know, and my dad was a big drinker, and so anytime you was around him, you had to drink, you know. I don't guess you had to, but it was kind of part of the deal. And I'd got to where I was drinking a lot more than I realized, and I read that alcohol really fouls up your metabolism. And I was like, whoa, no way. Because I kind of enjoyed drinking a little beer, you know what I mean? And socially. And I thought, well, all right, I'll knock off the beer for a couple of months and see how that goes. And I looked up and it'd been like 4 months and I hadn't even had a beer at all. And I hadn't even wanted one. And I was like, well, dang, I guess if I hadn't even thought about it in 4 months, I don't need it at all. And I kind of embarrassed about that because I know there's people that have legitimate alcohol issues and they go to AA and rehab and all the things trying to quit, and I quit accidentally, you know. But I will admit that I didn't have I wasn't alcoholic. Yeah. I mean, technically, I may have drank as much as an alcoholic, but it wasn't because I wanted it like that. But so cut out alcohol. I do not drink calories. I won't drink a calorie other than milk. I do drink a little bit of milk, but very little in protein drinks. It'll surprise you if you go to looking at calories in drinks. Sweet tea, Dr. Pepper, Cokes, all those things. It's incredible. I did a little illustration video the other day. It was 12 spoons, 18 teaspoons in Sprite. 18 teaspoons of sugar. Yeah. And one 12-ounce can of Sprite.
Yeah, Lottie, our little girl, she likes Sprite, and you think Sprite's clear, so it's kind of healthy. No. And I looked at it, and I was like, ice cream. Holy crap.
It's ice cream in a can.
40 grams of sugar in here or something.
For real. Yeah, it's in a gram of sugar is a teaspoon of sugar is 4 grams. And so that's kind of when I look at something, I say, well, it's got 40 grams. Well, that's 10 spoons. That's 10 spoons. So who would take a sweet tea, tea and sit there and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 spoons? Nobody, right? So the calories in and thing with the drinks was a big one for me because I love sweet tea. I mean, who don't? In Texas, you know, sweet tea and soda waters. I was bad about drinking them things, and I completely quit drinking calories, and that helped probably more than anything, really.
Well, tell
bread. Quit the bread and liquid calories.
All the stuff you like a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell everybody where they can follow you, all your social channels.
Oh man, shoot! On Facebook, I'm just Will Barrett. You know, I do have a TikTok. I hate it, kind of, sort of, but you know, I don't look at it much. We're all too busy on there. But Wild Will on TikTok and Instagram. I have a YouTube channel as well that I have named after my podcast. You know, but.
And what's the
podcast? It's Grit and Barrett podcast, and it's on all the things, you know, Spotify and Apple and YouTube. And ain't much to it. We're working on it, but anyways, that's that.
Yeah.
And
well, I appreciate you coming on. Y'all go check him out. Like I said at the start, he puts out a lot of positive content. Lots of good fitness content. A lot of cool cowboy content. Reading the Bible, ties it all in together. It's lots of good stuff. So y'all go check him out, all the channels, his podcast, everything, and we'll see y'all next time. As a business owner, you know Google reviews can make or break you. The problem, happy customers don't always speak up, and the few bad ones can drag you down fast. That's why we built Review Wizard, a free tool that makes getting 5-star reviews simple. Just post a QR code in your business, customers can scan it, and in seconds they leave you a review. But that's just the start. Review Wizard helps you respond to customers automatically, share reviews straight to social media, and even add them to your website to build instant trust. Every new review boosts your Google SEO ranking, making it easier for new customers to find you online. And if you want to take it to the next level, our AI upgrade can filter out the bad reviews before they hit your page and engage with your customers so you don't lose them. That means more good reviews, less damage control, and stronger relationships. The best part, the base version is completely free. No catch. Just click the link below and start turning your happy customers into your best marketing team today.